Generating enough power to keep the lights on is one of the country's biggest challenges. The government this week beefed up its commitment to new nuclear plants such as Hinkley Point, but it's facing criticism for its approach to renewable energy, in particular harnessing the power of the wind and sea around the West Country. Here's Paul Baltrop.
He had to put up with a helmet and high-vis, but Energy Secretary Greg Clark's visit to Hinkley Point last month seems to have impressed him. The government want to press ahead with another new nuclear plant, he told Parliament on Monday. There's a big difference, though. Taxpayers may fund it.
For this project, the government will be considering direct investment alongside Hitachi and the Japanese government agencies and other parties.
This is what our money may be invested in. New reactors at Wilver in North Wales. The firm behind it are based in Gloucester and hope a similar plant can follow at nearby Oldbury.
But that really is a blueprint for what we will do in due course at Oldbury. It'll be the same technology, and the success of the Oldbury project depends on us making progress with the first power station. But we're delighted to have the government indicate that it may be prepared to take a direct investment in the Wilver Newick power station. Really, for our role in this is to demonstrate that we are worthy of investment from a range of different investors. And the key thing we've got going for us is we have built this nuclear reactor technology 4 times already, on time and on budget every time.
Stringent safety requirements mean nuclear plants provide pretty expensive electricity. The government accept that, but take a different approach to one of the cheapest forms of renewable energy, onshore wind turbines. They've made it very hard to put them on English soil, ministers preferring to go for the costlier option of putting them offshore. One other way of generating power at sea is using tidal lagoons, but it's new and unproven, and the speculation the government have gone cold on it. For years, Gloucester-based Tidal Lagoon Power have worked on this scheme for Swansea Bay. It could be the first of several in the Bristol Channel. Rumours that ministers may pull the plug due to cost worry the firm's local MP.
Unless the government is going to show that it's prepared to support marine energy in its infancy, in the same way that we supported offshore wind, we're not going to have the chance to take advantage of one of our great natural sources of power, which is these very strong tides off the west coast of the United Kingdom and Wales in particular. So I think that, we should be bold. There's a deal to be done.
Also out of favour with government are onshore wind farms. This one in South Gloucestershire has just started work. The local firm behind it, Ecotricity, are frustrated.
This is a great example. It may be England's last wind farm for a long time if the attitude doesn't change. They've excluded it from everything, planning and the support schemes, and it's a very prejudicial move. And as I say, it's driven by the ideology of some parts of the Conservative Party. Wind is overwhelmingly popular. In all of the government surveys, 70 to 80% of the whole country back it and want to see it happen.
Almost all clean energy projects require subsidy, yet government investment is at its lowest for a decade. That worries many MPs.
Well, it's very sad that we now seem to be flatlining in terms of the rate of increase of renewables. It isn't just wind, but wind in particular seems to be something this government has a problem with. We need onshore and offshore wind because we need that as part of our balanced provision to make sure our supply is fit for purpose for the next couple of decades. And at the moment, it seems that we just are going on a knee-jerk reaction in so many different directions.
The amount of our electricity that comes from renewable energy has reached a third. All agree it's got to grow much further. The question is how.
James, the government, it seems, has fundamentally changed its model for the way they tackle nuclear plants. Is this a bit of a U-turn?
I don't know that it's a U-turn. I think that it is probably a better way of approaching the funding for new nuclear. The strike price at Hinkley of £92.50 already looks very high compared to what others in the industry think they can now build reactors for. And the way in which the Hinkley deal was done, with sort of risk being carried as it was, I think has probably given Greg cause to think again and look at this as a different funding model instead.
So fundamentally wrong?
I wouldn't go as far as wrong. They took the decision as they did and they can't go back and undo it. But I would openly say that the deal that we've got at Hinkley now would not seem to be as good a value for money as we thought it might have been 2 or 3 years ago.
Would you say taxpayers' money is now at risk then?
In what sense?
Using the money to build the new nuclear power stations?
No. No, I mean, I think that the technologies that we're employing are proven and workable. I don't think that we need anywhere near as much new nuclear as we'd once envisaged. We were once envisaging around 20 gigawatts. I think now about 12 gigawatts to 15 gigawatts is probably sufficient, given the advances in storage and demand response, which really unlocks renewables. But I don't think that the new nuclear program is unwanted. I certainly don't think that taxpayer investment in it is risky at all.
Darren, under a Labour government, would it be nationalised?
Well, I mean, the fact that the government is borrowing money to invest in infrastructure to grow our economy is something that we've been talking about in the Labour Party for a long time. And the fact of the matter is that borrowing as a country is currently cheaper for taxpayers than under the Hinckley arrangement, where because of the high price to buy the energy, consumer bills will be going up as a consequence.
Is that realistic, though?
Yes, I think it is. And I think, James and I agree on this. I think that the funding model change is probably a good idea. I think the Public Account Committee, would probably agree.
But Jeremy Corbyn wants the whole system nationalised on this, doesn't he?
Well, he does, but I think that's kind of a separate conversation. I mean, the question here is the way that the government's funding nuclear better than it has in the past? The answer is yes. My broader view is I'd rather we were investing more money into renewables and battery storage and upgrading our grid so that we can deal with renewable energies in a better way instead of having to invest in this kind of chugging turnout of a nuclear power station, and I'd like to see us doing more of that.
But John McDonnell himself has said he would get rid of nuclear power completely.
Sure, well, I mean, if it's built, we can't just get rid of it. But what he is saying, perhaps, is that he would like to invest in other sources of energy, and as I say, that's something I would support.
The Shadow Chancellor's wrong there, by the way. I mean, if you're going to electrify or predominantly electrify heat and transport for the purposes of decarbonising it, you need that always-on base load that comes from nuclear with all of the renewables on top. This isn't a renewables or nuclear. This is both. And in terms of sort of digitising, revolutionising the grid, I mean, £17 billion is being spent on the deployment of smart meters, which is one of the biggest infrastructure projects that the government is currently undertaking. And that is so key to sort of creating this digitised system that allows renewables to work with all the flexibility it requires.
James, the grid is still pretty Victorian. I mean, the way that we distribute power and the role of battery technologies for renewables is something that needs enormous amounts of investment. And James is right, we'll still need some baseload which comes from existing nuclear power plants, but we should be investing in the grid too.
So are the Conservatives, in your opinion, doing a good job with renewable, green energy?
Well, I think they need to be doing much, much more. I think onshore wind was a key example in that piece there, which I just think hasn't been pushed because of NIMBYism, when actually it's the right thing to do for the country. I think we need to find a solution to tidal power. I would love tidal lagoons in the Bristol Channel, which is part of my constituency.
Yes.
But because of things like silt, we don't have the technologies there ready. We should be investing in some research and development to solve that.
So, James, would you like to see turbines on the men tips?
I sort of agree with Darren there. I mean, what the government did that I think was
Would you like to see wind turbines on the men tips?
Well, 2 seconds. What the government did that was wrong was it both put in place a planning constraint and the subsidy issue. What you should do is put back in place the availability of subsidy. You should hold pot one auctions in which onshore wind and solar sit, but you should leave the planning system to be very robust, that if it's not wanted locally, then it's not going to happen. But that will unlock plenty of sites around the country. Look at, in Darren's country, when you come over the Avonmouth Bridge from Somerset, there are turbines there in an industrial landscape that look perfectly at home. So to kill off wind altogether is and was unnecessary, but to insist that it goes where people don't want it is unnecessary too.